The day the stars went dark, Admiral Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of Titan Station, watching the endless dance of stars that had become her second home. At 52, she had spent more years in space than on Earth, her weathered face bearing the marks of countless battles against pirates, rogue AI ships, and the occasional territorial dispute with alien traders. But nothing had prepared her for what appeared on her communication screen that morning. That the holographic display flickered to life, revealing a being that seemed to be carved from living obsidian. Its 6 eyes glowed with an inner fire, and when it spoke, the translator struggled to convey the sheer arrogance dripping from every word. "I am Overlord Zephix of the Galactic Dominion," the creature announced, its voice echoing through the station's command center. "For too long, your species has been allowed to expand unchecked through our galaxy. Your aggressive nature, your primitive emotions, and your refusal to acknowledge our authority ends now." Chun felt her jaw tighten. Around her, the bridge crew had gone silent, their faces pale as they listened to what sounded like a death sentence. "Earth and all human colonies will submit to Dominion rule within 7 of your solar rotations," Zephix continued. "You will surrender your military assets, dismantle your governments, and accept our guidance. Refuse, and your species will be cleansed from the galaxy. This is not a negotiation. This is an inevitability." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Chun stared at the empty hologram projector for a long moment, her mind racing. She had faced death before, had seen entire fleets torn apart by enemy fire, but this was different. This wasn't just war. This was extinction. "Admiral," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Commander Jake Morrison, her second in command, his young face creased with worry. "What are your orders?" Chun looked around at her crew, these men and women who had followed her through hell and back. They were scared, but they were still here, still looking to her for leadership. That told her everything she needed to know about humanity's response. "Get me a direct line to Earth Command," she said, her voice steady as steel. "And patch in every human colony, every outpost, every ship in the fleet. It's time they learned what happens when you threaten a species that crawled out of hell just to reach the stars." Within minutes, the communication array was buzzing with activity. President Marcus Torres appeared on the main screen from his bunker beneath Washington, his silver hair perfectly combed despite the early hour. Behind him, Chun could see the shadowy figures of Earth's military leadership, all of them waiting for her report. "Admiral Chun," Torres said, his voice carrying the weight of 8 billion lives. "We received the transmission. What's your assessment?" Chun straightened her uniform, every inch the seasoned military officer. "Mr. President, the Galactic Dominion has made a critical error. They've mistaken our willingness to coexist for weakness. They've confused our diplomacy for submission. And they've forgotten that humans have never, in our entire history, simply laid down and died when threatened." A murmur of agreement rippled through the communication network as colony leaders and fleet commanders added their voices to the growing chorus of defiance. Dr. Elena Vasquez materialized on a secondary screen, her dark eyes blazing with an intensity that Chun had learned to associate with breakthrough moments. The quantum physicist had been working on classified projects in the Outer Rim, and her presence on this call meant only one thing. "Admiral, Mr. President," Vasquez said, her slight accent barely noticeable after years of interstellar travel. "I've been monitoring Dominion technology for the past 3 years. They rely heavily on quantum field manipulation and energy projection systems. Their ships are powerful, but they have a critical weakness." Torres leaned forward. "Explain." "They've never encountered weaponry based on space-time distortion. Our experimental Void Ripper technology could theoretically tear holes in their hull plating at the molecular level. The problem is, we've never had a chance to test it against their specific alloy compositions. Chun felt a cold smile spreading across her face. Doctor, how long would you need to make the necessary modifications? Give me 72 hours and access to the Prometheus research facility, and I can have 3 prototype weapons ready for field testing. The president was quiet for a moment, weighing options that would determine the fate of humanity. When he spoke, his voice carried the resolute tone that had won him 2 elections. Authorization granted for Operation Defiant Dawn. Admiral Chun, you have complete military autonomy. Dr. Vasquez, you have unlimited resources. Gentlemen and ladies, the Dominion has given us 7 days to surrender. He paused, his eyes hard as diamonds. Instead, we're going to give them 7 days to learn why humans don't kneel. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. While Earth's civilian population was told only that negotiations were ongoing, the military machine shifted into overdrive. Ships that had been conducting routine patrols suddenly changed course, converging on predetermined coordinates. Weapons that existed only in theoretical papers were rushed into production. And throughout it all, Chun coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Dr. Vasquez worked without sleep, her team of engineers and physicists pushing the boundaries of known science. The Void Ripper weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever created. Instead of simply destroying matter, they created localized tears in space-time, causing target structures to collapse into themselves at the quantum level. On the 4th day, Chun received a priority transmission from the Outer Rim colonies. Commander Lisa Park of the exploration vessel Endeavour had made contact with a group of refugee ships fleeing Dominion space. Admiral, Park reported, her face grim. These beings call themselves the Kithara. They're telling us that the Dominion has enslaved or exterminated over 200 species in the past millennium. They're not negotiators. They're conquerors. And according to their intelligence, the Dominion fleet heading our way consists of over 3,000 vessels. Chun absorbed this information without flinching. 3,000 ships was more than humanity had ever faced, but it also presented an opportunity. Commander Park, escort those refugees to the safe zones and gather every piece of intelligence they have on Dominion tactics and technology. If we're going to war with an empire, we need to know how they think. By the 6th day, Operation Defiant Dawn was ready to begin. Chun stood once again on the observation deck of Titan Station, but this time she wasn't alone. Around her, the largest human fleet ever assembled hung in space like a constellation of defiance. 500 ships, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble fighters, all armed with weapons the Dominion had never encountered. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. Instead of waiting for the Dominion to come to Earth, humanity would strike first. 3 simultaneous attacks on Dominion outposts would announce Earth's refusal to submit while gathering crucial intelligence about enemy capabilities. All units, this is Admiral Chun, she broadcast to the entire fleet. Today, we answer a threat with action. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't negotiate with bullies. Today, we prove that the species that conquered its own world, that reached for the stars despite every obstacle, that has never surrendered in the face of extinction, will not start now. The first target was a Dominion communication relay in the Vega system. Captain Rodriguez of the destroyer Indomitable led the assault, his ship dropping out of hyperspace directly on top of the unsuspecting station. The Void Ripper weapons performed flawlessly, tearing through the alien hull like tissue paper. The entire engagement lasted less than 10 minutes. Simultaneously, the heavy cruiser Retribution struck a Dominion fuel depot in the Centauri sector. Commander Sarah Kim's precision attack left the facility, a drifting wreck while her ship escaped without a scratch. The third strike was Chun's personally. Leading a squadron of 6 ships, she hit a Dominion patrol base in neutral space. The aliens had clearly expected their reputation to protect them. They were wrong. Chun watched through the view screen as her Void Ripper cannons carved through enemy vessels with surgical precision. But it was the aftermath that truly sent the message. Instead of simply destroying the facilities, each human strike team left behind a recorded message broadcast on all Dominion frequencies. "This is Admiral Sarah Chun of Earth's Naval Forces." Her voice echoed across the galaxy. "The Galactic Dominion demanded our surrender. This is our response. We are not a species that kneels. We are not a civilization that submits. We are humans, and we have spent our entire existence fighting for the right to exist. Your ultimatum is rejected. Your threats are meaningless, and your empire's days of unchallenged dominance are over." The response came within hours. Overlord Zephix appeared on screens throughout human space, his obsidian features twisted with rage. "You have chosen extinction," he snarled. "The full might of the Dominion fleet advances toward your pathetic world. In 3 days, your son will witness the end of human arrogance." Chun smiled as she watched the transmission. The Dominion had just made their second critical error. They were coming to Earth angry, emotional, and underestimating their enemy. Everything humanity needed to survive what came next. "All ships return to designated coordinates," she ordered. "Phase 1 is complete. Now we prepare for Phase 2, teaching the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth's children." As the human fleet regrouped and the Dominion Armada began its approach, one thing was clear. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and neither side intended to show mercy. When Earth became the hunter, the Dominion fleet arrived at the edge of human space like a storm made of metal and fury. Admiral Chun watched from the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant, as 3,000 alien vessels emerged from hyperspace. In perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of intimidation, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that had conquered civilizations for 1,000 years. "Sensor readings confirmed the refugee intelligence," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the tactical station. 3,000 ships, ranging from frigate class to their massive command dreadnoughts. "Admiral, they have enough firepower, too. Glass a dozen worlds." Chun nodded, her expression calm despite the overwhelming odds. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their fear transformed into cold determination. This was humanity's defining moment, and everyone knew it. "Dr. Vasquez, status on the primary weapon?" Chun asked, turning to the physicist, who had barely left the engineering deck in the past week. Vasquez looked up from her portable workstation, her eyes red from exhaustion, but blazing with scientific triumph. "The Void Ripper Mark II is operational, Admiral. I've made modifications based on the data from our initial strikes. We can now create sustained space-time distortions large enough to affect capital ships." "How large?" Chun asked. "Large enough to trap their entire command structure in a collapsing bubble of reality," Vasquez replied with a grim smile. "The theoretical applications are terrifying, even to me." Before Chun could respond, the main communication array activated. Overlord Zephix appeared on the screen, his 6 eyes glowing with anticipation of victory. "Admiral Chun," his voice dripped with condescension, "your futile resistance ends now. Behold the might of the Dominion. 3,000 vessels against your pathetic few hundred. Surrender now, and I will ensure your death is swift." Chun stood slowly, her uniform pristine, despite the chaos of the past week. When she spoke, her voice carried across not just her own bridge, but to every human ship in the fleet. "Overlord Zephix, you've made a fundamental error in your calculations. You counted our ships, our weapons, our numbers. But you forgot to count our will. You forgot that humans have been fighting impossible odds since we first picked up rocks to defend our caves. You forgot that we've never met a challenge we didn't eventually overcome. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the message that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. We didn't come here to negotiate. We didn't come here to surrender. We came here to teach you and every species watching this transmission a lesson that will echo through the stars for 1,000 years. Humanity doesn't kneel. Humanity fights. And today, you're going to learn why that makes us the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Dominion response was immediate and overwhelming. Energy beams capable of melting asteroids lanced through space toward the human fleet. But Chun had spent the past 3 days studying every tactical recording from species that had faced the Dominion and survived long enough to flee. All ships execute pattern Omega-7, she commanded. The human fleet didn't meet the Dominion charge head-on. Instead, they scattered like a school of fish, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the worst of the alien firepower. While the massive Dominion dreadnoughts were powerful, they were also slow and predictable. Captain Rodriguez, now commanding the light cruiser Nemesis, led his squadron in a weaving pattern through the enemy formation, his Void Ripper weapons carving through alien hulls with surgical precision. Each shot didn't just destroy matter. It erased it from existence, leaving perfect spherical holes where armor plating had been moments before. Target their command ships, Chun ordered, watching as her tactical display showed the battle unfolding. Make them question their leadership before they question their superiority. The strategy worked brilliantly. Within the first hour of combat, humanity had destroyed or disabled 47 Dominion vessels while losing only 3 of their own. But Chun knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when the Dominion adapted to human tactics. Admiral, Commander Morrison reported from his position at the sensor array, long-range scouts are detecting something troubling. The Dominion has dispatched secondary fleets to human colonies in the Outer Rim. They're targeting civilian populations. Chun felt ice form in her veins. This was the Dominion's true nature revealing itself. When they couldn't win through direct confrontation, they turned to terror and genocide. Dr. Vasquez, she called out, her voice sharp with urgency. How quickly? Can we deploy the Void Ripper as a strategic weapon rather than tactical? The physicist looked up from her calculations, understanding immediately what Chun was asking. You want to use it on multiple targets simultaneously? Admiral, the power requirements alone would drain our entire fleet's energy reserves. Asterisk. That's not what I asked, Doctor. Can it be done? Vasquez was quiet for a moment, her brilliant mind racing through possibilities that existed at the very edge of theoretical physics. Yes, but it would require coordinating quantum field fluctuations across light years of space. The precision needed would be ... unprecedented. Then make it happen. We're going to end this war in a way that ensures no one ever threatens humanity. Again, while the main battle raged around Earth, Chun implemented the most audacious military strategy in human history. Using the quantum communication network that Dr. Vasquez had been developing, she coordinated simultaneous strikes across 12 sectors of space. Human ships that had been thought destroyed suddenly reappeared behind Dominion lines, their crews. Having used experimental cloaking technology to hide in asteroid fields and nebulae, the attacks were perfectly timed, hitting Dominion supply lines, command bases, and reinforcement fleets all at once. Commander Lisa Park, leading the strike on a major Dominion shipyard, transmitted her report with barely contained excitement. Admiral, their entire military infrastructure in the Rigel sector is collapsing. They never expected us to fight a war across multiple fronts simultaneously. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. The Cathara refugees that had fled to human space were not just seeking sanctuary, They were seeking revenge. Using their intimate knowledge of Dominion systems, they guided human strike teams to the most critical targets in the Empire. Admiral Chun, came a transmission from the Cathara leader, an insectoid being whose translator conveyed deep gratitude. Your species has shown us something we thought lost forever: hope. We will fight beside you until the Dominion burns. The turning point came on the second day of the war. Dr. Vasquez had completed her modifications to the Void Ripper system, creating what she called the reality anchor. Instead of simply tearing holes in space-time, the weapon could create a stable distortion field large enough to trap entire fleets. Asterisk. Admiral, Vasquez reported, her voice tight with concentration as she monitored readings that no human had ever seen before. I have a lock on the Dominion Command Cluster. 47 ships, including their primary dreadnought. If we activate the reality anchor now, we can trap them in a collapsing space-time bubble. They won't be destroyed. They'll simply cease to exist in our reality. Chun looked around her bridge, seeing the faces of men and women who had followed her into hell. They were tired, bloodied, but unbroken. This was humanity at its finest. Doctor, are there any escape pods or civilian vessels in the target zone? Negative, Admiral. Only military targets. Then execute the reality anchor. And this. The weapon activated with a sound that seemed to come from the universe itself, groaning under the strain. Space around the Dominion command fleet began to ripple like water, reality bending inward as the laws of physics themselves were rewritten. The alien ships tried to flee, their powerful engines straining against forces they couldn't comprehend. But there was no escaping a weapon that attacked existence itself. One by one, the Dominion vessels simply faded from reality, not destroyed, but erased from the quantum structure of the universe. Within minutes, the most powerful military force in galactic history had been reduced to empty space and confused sensor readings. The surviving Dominion ships throughout the galaxy received the transmission simultaneously. Admiral Chun's face appeared on every screen, her expression calm but implacable. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of Earth's Naval Forces. Your leadership has been removed from existence. Your fleets are scattered and broken. Your empire, built on conquest and terror, is finished. Any Dominion vessel that continues hostile actions against human colonies or our allies will share the same fate as your command fleet. The response was immediate. Across hundreds of worlds, Dominion governors and military commanders began broadcasting surrender messages. Species that had been enslaved for centuries rose up against their weakened oppressors. The galaxy's power structure collapsed in a matter of hours. But Chun wasn't finished. As reports poured in of Dominion atrocities discovered on liberated worlds, her expression hardened. Dr. Vasquez, I want reality anchors deployed at every former Dominion stronghold. Any world or station where they committed genocide against civilian populations gets erased. We're not just ending their empire. We're removing every trace of their crimes from existence. Over the following days, 17 former Dominion military installations simply vanished from reality. Weapons facilities where they had developed planet-killing viruses, prison worlds where they had tortured captured species for scientific experiments, command bases where they had planned the extinction of entire civilizations, all were systematically erased from the universe. The message was clear. Humanity would not tolerate genocide, and they had the power to enforce that belief. As the dust settled and the galaxy adjusted to its new reality, Chun stood once again on the observation deck of Titan Station. But now, instead of looking out at an empty star field, she watched as ships from dozens of species approached Earth. They came seeking alliance, protection, and guidance from the species that had accomplished the impossible. President Torres appeared on her personal communication screen, his face bearing the weight of humanity's new responsibilities. Admiral, the Galactic Assembly is requesting that Earth take over the Dominion's role as the galaxy's governing authority. They're offering us control over 3,000 worlds and the most advanced technology in known space. Chun was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. Humanity had fought for the right to exist, and in doing so, they had become the most powerful force in the galaxy. Mr. President, we didn't fight this war to become conquerors. We fought it to remain free. I suggest we accept the role of protector, not ruler. Let the liberated species govern themselves, but make it clear that humanity will defend them against any threat. Torres smiled, understanding that Chun had found the perfect balance between power and responsibility. Agreed, Admiral. The galaxy wanted to see what humans would do when threatened with extinction. Now they know. We don't just survive. We protect others from ever facing the same threat. As the first ships from the liberated species docked with Earth stations, Shun reflected on what humanity had accomplished. They had faced an empire that had conquered the galaxy for 1,000 years, and not only survived, but thrived. They had turned defense into offense, victims into protectors, and fear into hope. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that had crawled out of hell, reached for the stars, and then refused to kneel when threatened with extinction. Humanity had taken its place not as conquerors, but as guardians of the innocent and defenders of freedom throughout the cosmos. And in the deepest reaches of space, where reality had been torn and rewoven, the echoes of humanity's message continued to resonate. Some species cannot be broken, cannot be conquered, and will never, ever surrender.